Hello and welcome. I came across a talk by an engineer who worked on Pratt & Whitney J58 engines, the engine that powers the awesome SR-71 Blackbird. Arnie Gunderson references the specific fuel JP7 that this aircraft requires. The fuel serves not only to provide propulsion but also works as hydraulic fluid. I'm guessing that the JP7 is also moved about the tanks, acting to trim the aircraft. Perhaps also, as in the Concorde, the fuel is used to dissipate heat in the airframe. Let us hear from Mr. Gunderson.
Hi, my name is Arnie Gunderson. I worked for Pratt & Whitney for 33 years, 20 years of which was on this engine and this wonderful program. Let's talk a little bit about the fuel. The fuel is another big deal. That was another heat obstacle that we had to overcome. This system uses something called JP7, which is a highly refined kerosene, very similar to JP4, JP5, or Jet A that you might have heard or seen written on a fuel truck when you went to the airport. Same basic substance, kerosene. Ours is refined. It has an extremely low vapor pressure. What that means is that it's very difficult to light. You can hold a match above a container of JP7, it will not burn. What actually burns, now with gasoline, obviously you wouldn't do that because you know that as soon as you did that, you'd have this gigantic flash. With JP7, it doesn't happen. JP7 has to be above 135 degrees before that match will do anything to the fuel. So the part that actually burns is vapor, and that's why we worry about vapor pressure. So JP7 is also used as the hydraulic fluid in our engine. So we put in a lubricity additive and an antioxidation additive and an anti-coking additive. Those three additives allow the fuel to be stable inside the engine. The fuel, by the time it gets to the burner or to the afterburner, the fuel is up to around 600 degrees. And then when we spray it in, it burns pretty easy.
Jet fuel, as we know, is a kerosene derived from crude oil and is a mixture of hydrocarbons. Extraction is either by fractional distillation or by chemical decomposition by cracking heavier portions of crude oil. In 1853, Abraham Gesner developed the process. The distillate that boils between 150 degrees centigrade and 275 degrees centigrade is the kerosene that is required. The composition varies according to the source of the crude oil. Civil aviation aircraft use standard Jet A, which has a freezing point of minus 40 degrees centigrade. If cold weather performance is needed, then 70% of the fuel is gasoline added, giving Jet B, which has a very low freezing point of minus 60 degrees centigrade. Then there are military fuels, JP1 right through to JP10. Fiddling with composition and additives gives ranges of flash point and freezing points. Additives can include antioxidants to prevent gumming, anti-static agents because moving fuel about induces static charges, corrosion inhibitors, icing inhibitors, and biocides. Hard to believe that some bacteria and fungi could live in kerosene. Then there are metal deactivators to reduce negative effects of trace metals. No idea what that means. To lessen reliance on crude oil, there have been synthetic jet fuels developed that have low sulfur and nitrogen oxide emissions. The world's first passenger aircraft flight to use only synthetic jet fuel was from Lanseria International Airport to Cape Town International Airport in September 2010. Biofuels from such sources as algae show promise. Green Flight International became the first airline to fly jet aircraft on 100% biofuel. The flight from Reno Steed Airport in Nevada was in an Aero L-29 Delphin. Oil prices increased about fivefold from 2003 to 2008, raising fears that world petroleum production is becoming unable to keep up with demand. The fact that there are few alternatives to petroleum for aviation fuel adds urgency to the search for alternatives. 25 airlines were bankrupted or stopped operations in the first 6 months of 2008, largely due to fuel costs. There are dreams that green hydrogen may be the future. In April 1988, hydrogen powered the Tu-155 to fly. Aircraft flying using electrical power alone or from fuel cells are not science fiction. The Pipistrel Vallis Electro that first flew in June of 2020 is an example. Thank you for watching. Please comment to add to the conversation, like, subscribe and hit the notify bell to encourage content.